WeAudition is a chance for me to do what I love, and I love what I do.
I want to support other actors and lift us all up together.
Every time I come to the States or different places in the world, I meet up with new WeAudition friends. It's beautiful.
We're doing something slightly different for this episode and hearing from some of WeAudition's top readers who have offered to impart some tips that they've picked up from reading literally tens of thousands of auditions between them to help you in your self-tapes. WeAudition has readers everywhere in the world, meaning that there are always readers online 24/7. So we reached out to some of our top readers in New York, London in the UK, and in Sydney, Australia. Pete Luna is an actor, writer, and producer based in New York with over 2,000 WeAudition reader reviews. Katrina Rumbal works extensively in commercials and top-level comedy TV shows in both New Zealand and Australia. She has over 1,400 WeAudition reviews. JD Hunt is based in London and has worked across theatre, film and television for over 10 years, including extensively in London's West End. JD was one of our earliest members and has read for literally thousands of actors on WeAudition, and you might recognise him as the face of our app artwork. Welcome back to the WeAudition Show, and today we have Pete Luna. Hi Pete, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a huge thrill. This was such a thrill that I was gonna try to come out to California to do it in person because that's how much this platform means to me.
What kind of show would you like to do?
I would say something on streaming, something non-network. That way I can, because I just find that the network stuff, it's just, well, people don't always talk that way. But then, I mean, the streaming shows like something like The Bear would be. I'd love to be on The Bear.
Right.
I mean, they film in Chicago. You can tell they film in Chicago. But yeah, it's just, even something like, the best show I've probably seen in recent years has been Succession, because on paper that wouldn't work. It's about super rich people. Who gives a fuck about them? I mean, they're taking helicopters to work, but then when it comes down to it, it's really about these kids who just want their father to love them. And just
it was a fantastic drama, wasn't it? I love that show.
It's just, everything can't be that good, and it just spoiled me. I wish everything was that good. But so something like that, like a writing on that caliber, which, I mean, that's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Well, talking of writing, and I mean, that show's very heavy dialogue, and you love dialogue. You're one of our top-rated readers on WeAudition. Yeah. Talk to us about how you got to that position to be one of the MVPs, which are most valuable players, and also what makes a good reader.
A good reader listens to the other person, and because, I mean, a good reader, I said about parallels. You can give relationship advice much better than you can take it. So, but the reader can see what the actor can't. Yeah, I mean, a good reader is a partner. I mean, it is a collaborative effort. But a good reader will. I mean, if you ask for, I mean, I've actors will ask me for advice. What do you think about that? But it's just so much easier for me to see it. Even when I book a reader, like, shout out to Katrina Rumbal, who's the best. She'll say, oh, yeah, great. Because she can see it. I don't bother looking at my self-tapes. I don't watch them until I'm done. I do 3 takes, then I'm out. Because Darren, you gave advice to, you were on a podcast and you were saying, listen, you're not going to get 10 chances in the room.
Right.
So you're going to get 1 chance and then they'll give you another, then you redirect.
Has it made you a better actor, do you think?
Oh, yeah. It sent my confidence, which was high, through the fucking roof. It really... Because you can see, oh, okay. Because I can tell if the actor, as a reader, you can tell when the actor's done the work. You can see, if I got to be word perfect. Oh, if only we're that easy. If being word perfect got everybody cast, we would all be working.
So if you had some advice to someone, if you've seen a lot of people read, right, and you've seen a lot of different scripts, and is it really, really obvious to you when someone's good, and are you able to take someone as a reader and sort of advise them from those people that you've seen that are good and put them in different directions, or how do you work?
Yeah, I will. Someone will say, I'll say, can I give you feedback? Or most of the secure actors will say, yeah, I'd love some feedback or whatever. But the couple things I do recommend was, one is paraphrasing from Yellowstone, perfection exists only in moments. There's no such thing as a perfect audition. because you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. How the fuck is this going to be perfect? What's perfect? And you're never the best judge of your own scene. You let somebody, the reader knows better than you do about the scene, because the reader either believes you or doesn't. Yeah. Cause I had a Law and Order audition, and I recorded the rehearsal take. And then Katrina said, she goes, that was great. That was great. You could do another take if you want, but you had a lot of stuff come up there. Okay, we'll go. We'll move on. So that was it. It was just a rehearsal take. There was no second or third, and that, but she saw that. But it all goes down to the life behind the eyes. I mean, what you're thinking. Because I did another example where I booked a reader because I did a scene from Before Sunset. The Julie Delpy, Ethan Hawke film. But my character's talking, and then midway in the scene, he's got a monologue. And I say, you know what? So I'm talking to Celine about, we're reuniting after years. It's a great monologue. And the actress asked me, were you thinking of anybody when you said that? And I said, all right, I'll be honest, I wasn't. And she said, I could tell. And I was really glad that she called me out on that. I didn't even ask her, but she was, yeah. And and I really appreciated that, because if I was going to record that on my own and play that back, I'm going to be thinking all the shit I thought was coming up during the scene, and it might not play, because I'm not going to be the best judge of my work. But the reader is always, and also you look at from the point of view of the casting director. So the reader is can be from the point of view of the casting director. Okay, do I have this person's attention? Does the person believe me? And then it all comes down to that. But I mean, I've worked with actors. I mean, teleprompters, yeah, but you don't want to use a teleprompter as an excuse for not learning the lines. You want to do the work. You know what you're doing, and you need to know why you're there, why you're saying what you're saying. But
well, and ultimately, you enjoy acting, right? So actually, being the reader is doing scenes every day, isn't it? It's helping you actually connect with other actors in an artistic sense as well, huh?
Yeah, I did when I started becoming a reader. When I became a reader, I was, working for free, which is what you do because the word of mouth is most important, and the reviews. But JD Hunt's, I worked with him. I made JD, I love him. But he gave me a glowing review, and that got the ball rolling. That really made a big difference there. But that got it rolling. But I have over 2,000 reviews, but it's not 2,000 different actors. It's the same actors, time after time.
But when I know from my point of view, when I'm working with another actor, I'm really open to hearing what they say, because I know they understand, and I'm hoping they're looking out for those nuances. Do you find that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I found that to be true. But I find that it's not always the best idea to read with a family member, because it's a case of being too familiar. I had a scene where I was playing a doctor, and I had my niece, and I'm reading with two kids. So I held my nieces. I got my nieces, and we worked over Zoom, and it was great. I had a lot of fun with them, but I was more concerned with making sure they were having fun. And it wasn't a great audition for me. And it was because it was too familiar.
And you had an obligation, really, like you said, to make sure that they were not getting bored and all those things.
And maybe get through it quicker. Like, can we get through this? I don't want to do a favor, too much of a favor. Get on. And then you see that in your eyes. You said you can see what you.
And I have a 3-take. Yeah, I have a 3 or 4 take rule. I have a 3-take rule only.
For yourself.
Yeah, and then I ended up doing multiple takes with them. It's like, okay, this didn't. So I wouldn't. That's not a mistake I'll make again. I'll make new mistakes because that's what life is.
And that's the important thing about having a good reader, because you don't want the non-good take to be not your fault. Because if you've done a good take, but someone else has stumbled on their words or not given the scene the right direction that it should have taken, then you'll find yourself doing the scene again because the pacing wasn't right for the reader. One of the things I think is great about having a professional reader is they understand the scene, they understand the pace, and you just go. I know when I've worked with you personally, we just get into it, and there's never a need to redo it on a technical sense.
The only question I have when I'm reading with somebody is what's going on in the scene? How do we know each other? Is it a comedy or drama? And if it's and that's it. Because I mean, I can jump right in and do the scene, but it would be helpful to know.
You are very good at that, actually. When I've read with you, you ask the right questions at the right time. And I've worked with directors who do that as well, actually. And that's a really nice, just before you do a scene, they might say those questions. And it really helps, actually, just to go, oh, yeah, right. Oh, I've just come from wherever. or how do we know each other? Because sometimes when you're shooting a procedural drama or whatever, you're out of sync anyway. So it's good to know those things.
Yeah,
and that helps the reader.
but I got to say that I did a when I was on WeAudition, I've been working for a couple of months as a reader, and then I did this workshop with one-on-one. And I had a scene that I worked on. I did a scene from Before Sunset, the same thing with the monologue. And then I read it, and my reader was I got to look her. I keep forgetting to look her up, but she was a phenomenal reader. And by this point, I realized, okay, it's not that easy to be a reader, to be a good reader, because you can work. I mean, I'm sure you've been in a room with somebody, and that person's just reading it, and it's okay. You're not giving me a lot, but it's not about the reader. But she was phenomenal. And I'm doing the scene with her, and I'm getting caught up in what I'm saying. And then the casting director said, that was one of the best things I've ever seen in this workshop. And it just knocked it out of the park. But I realized it was the on-the-job training with WeAudition. The multiple sessions a day that I was doing got me to that point. It's like Karate Kid. He's just spending 3 weeks doing wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. He's, what is this shit? Miyagi, what is this shit? And then Miyagi tries to punch him, and he blocks it because he didn't realize he was training. So I didn't realize. Now I know. I didn't realize how valuable that was as training, and it really does, and it just made things so much easier, And then it's just, a more matter of tech issues, which I've got.
Talking about training a little bit. You said that there's the 3 record rule when you're doing a thing. You only do 3 takes for your actual.
Yeah.
Take. What prep do you do then? What's your procedure beforehand?
I've been focusing on, of course, I'll read the script, but memorization is the last thing I do now. And it takes me like that I learned something in 5 minutes. I learned everything. You write out the first letter of each word, include the punctuation. So for the script, so in the back of the script, I'll write out my letters in red ink, just my letters and the punctuation. I'll write out the other character's dialogue. And then any relevant stage directions. Then you look at the script and then you look at the letters. And by looking at the letters, the words pop in your head.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that technique before.
I've not heard that before.
Katrina turned me on to this video, and then another actor turned me on to the video as well. And it's ridiculous how well it works. People saying, oh, it's not going to work for me. It will. Let it work for you. Every time I do it, I'm astonished by how well it works.
So you copy out your own lines, just the first letter of each word, but include the punctuation.
Yes.
And then
Robert Downey Jr. does that. And then Pedro Pascal did a video where he does the same thing, except he writes in columns. And he said it looks like the ramblings of a lunatic. It's funny, but he'll include the punctuation, but he'll do that for the work. I mean, it's a great way to learn lines, but I do that as, if I'm learning lines on a set. I'll do the same
thing. And then do you do that like together or just or do you space it out? I'll do the words there?
I'll do it on the back of the page. I print on one side. I'll leave it. If I put it next to it, then I can cheat and look at I don't want to cheat. So I'll just do it. And then I even did it for a monologue for The Shy. I did that. And then from memory, it took me, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes to memorize it. And then I typed it from Word in memory. I typed it from memory in Word, and then I booked a reader, even for it's a monologue. And that's another thing. Book a reader for monologue, because the reader will see what you can't.
Oh, yes. I have seen a few people do that, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. My first read on WeAudition was on a Friday night, and it was an actor working on a monologue from a play, and he just wanted somebody to listen, which was great. I mean, I didn't have to do anything, but that was a great idea. And it's always... And it's because even when I'm doing a monologue and I book a reader for it, I can see the other person reacting. I mean, I'm not looking for a reaction, but I can see it's that effect. And I can even, because I did a monologue to the wall and I did a monologue with a person and I played them back, and the energy is quite different.
Interesting. Right. Especially if the monologue isn't a soliloquy, right? If it's an actual monologue as part of a script, you're still speaking to somebody or something.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Sutherland has that scene in JFK. That famous. He's in the one scene, but he spent 3 months working on that. He would walk around in the park with his wife, and she would try to throw him off by asking him questions. So he spent 3 months working on it, and then he said, "Okay, I can do this." But that's the same thing. So he worked. It's not a monologue per se, because Costner's character does interject here and there, but it's basically a monologue. But he did the same thing. He had somebody, he could have done that to the wall, but he would, he had somebody challenge him, which was great. But another thing that his Kiefer Sutherland's son had mentioned, that is that my dad did what he loved and loved what he did, and that's a pretty great place to be, and it's a life well lived. And I think, and that really stuck with me, because WeAudition is a chance for me to do what I love, and I love what I do. Would you do
That's
this?
the work, isn't it?
Yeah. Would you do it for free? If you would do a job for free, then it's the job for you. And
Right.
for WeAudition, we all work. I worked for free because it was a word of mouth, and I said I love doing this, and I got to meet people from all over the country.
Talk us through your setup. You've always got really good sound, and you've got some great props when you work. Tell us about your setup and all your lights and everything.
I got these lights from Elgato, key lights. They're about 120 each, but they were worth it. And I was watching a video on YouTube on how to set them up. And I wouldn't have thought of this otherwise, but the guy in the video said, if you can face your light, if you can have your lights face the wall, do that. So the wall acts as a bounce board. It's the age old filmmaking trick, which I didn't know, but yeah. And that works. So that way there's never any harshness here. So I put some white foam on the wall, so it has like a more natural look to it. So the lights bounce off there. Then I have a light down there, which you can see there. But the backdrop is gray. It's gray vinyl. By using blue lights, I have them all the same color, so they all look. And I even have this, and I have added a couple other lights, some LED lights. But I set everything in the same color. But you want to get smart bulbs for your setup if you can, because you can control the intensity and the color. Especially if you have a white backdrop or light gray backdrop, you can change the color dramatically just by changing the colors on the lights.
Do you choose a background to suit the job or to the scene, or do you normally go for blue?
I always go over the blue because I took this package, this actor color guru package that Brian Pataka had recommended. And so I took photos of myself outside in natural light, and then I got a package and a little card in the mail with the best. But I did the actor package, so it said the best backdrop color is royal blue. My best neutral color is white. So it was really well. So I got that just for self tapes, just so I know which colors are really going to pop. So for instance, my cheerful color is green. So if I'm going to be a little friendly, I'll wear like a Kelly green, something Kelly green. And it works really
What's that based on? Is there a psychology behind the colors?
It's like getting your colors done. It's the same like if you went into like if you went into Sephora or went to some package and paid, okay, get my colors done, and the person will try to, this looks good on you. The person will try different shades on you and see which one.
Based on your skin tone and your hair and all those things.
Yeah, I'm a twilight winter, so dark tones work well on me. Brown doesn't work, and orange doesn't work, which I didn't know. I thought brown would work because my hair is technically dark brown, but it doesn't. Right. But it's been really good. Even jewelry, let's say silver is better than gold, for me anyway. But that was really useful. So now I make sure that my backdrop is always royal blue.
Pete, what's getting you excited right now about your career?
I'm going to be on FBI sooner or later, because I've auditioned 9 times.
That means they like you. That really does. Yeah.
Yeah. And I realized you don't really have to put that much time into this. You just have to know what you're doing, your relationship with the other character. But a key moment, because I learned this from my friend of mine, is the moment before. Just improvise something before the scene starts and then cut that. And that really makes a big difference.
I heard that this week, actually, like pick up a sock or change something or do something else. And then you're in the moment a bit more, and then you cut it out.
Yeah, because you can see it. You can see it when the actor's complete. Because I did that with a guy. We were playing brothers, and my character was yelling at him. And he said, "Oh, there's some language in here," and I said, "Let's improvise in the beginning." So I was in the beginning. So I was calling him all sorts of names, and it really threw him, but it threw him in the best way, and that carried over that tension that he felt carried over into the scene, and it really made the scene. Yeah.
This is a different type of example, but one of the best courses I did in the UK years ago was with an actor called Dennis Lawson, who was in the original Star Wars.
Dennis Lawson? Yes.
Dennis Lawson, yeah. Yes. And he told us this one trick that I still use to this day on a set is think about how energized your character is. Have they just come off a long run? Have they walked up a set of stairs? Because he said most of the time people, they'll start a scene, they would have just climbed 6 flights of stairs and they won't even be remotely out of breath.
Right.
And so he said, now you can't necessarily run around the block before a scene, but if you have just run down the street to catch the bus, stand in the wings, stand on the side, just bounce on your toes a little bit, get the heart rate going, just do something that creates some movement. And you'll walk into that scene with just a little bit of breath.
Yeah.
And it just creates the energy. And it's
Right.
those tiny little things that you see on, in his point of saying this, he's generally teaching a bunch of theater actors.
Mm-hmm.
When he say on screen, we can see that nuance, and you put your face up on a huge cinema screen, just that little bit of nuance in your chest and your breath was what sold the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, what do you do? Because I had this audition for something, for a pilot. But I spent all my time working on the moment before in my relationship. So in the other thing that I learned from Dewan is to use photos of people for eyeline purposes. So I use photos of people instead of, you can use a Post-it note and write a little smiley face on it, but for eyeline purposes, but I have different photos. So for instance, for FBI, I used a photo. I went online and found photos of the actors from the scene.
That's interesting.
And I used it there. So I had an eyeline there and I had an eyeline there, and I was able to
Nice.
look right at them. Because for self-tapes, if I'm reading with you and I look at you, it's going to look like I'm looking down. Like it would look like this.
Yeah.
So I put the photo there, I put a photo there, and I would put a photo there. And that works out really well. And then where you want a photo where you can see the person's eyes. So I look in the person's eyes the whole time.
And you'll use different people. Will they be related to the scene you're doing? Would you go online and just print out someone?
Yeah, for FBI and I think for Chicago Fire, I used the photos of the actors in the scene.
The real actors.
It's great because it says FBI on it, and it's great. And that worked out really well. If I have to reading with a stranger, I can use a photo of a stranger. If I'm reading with a love interest, I'll use a photo of somebody that I love. Is I look at the photo and I just completely, react, and then I can just focus on that. Casting directors say, become a reader. It makes you a better actor. You don't even have to try. If WeAudition didn't exist, somebody would have had to invent it. So I'm glad that you guys did.
Oh, great. Thank you.
It's like Robert Downey Jr. was talking about Iron Man and how would he return to the role? He said it's part of his DNA. WeAudition is part of my DNA. I cannot conceive of my life without it. It is the most important thing that I've done for my career, other than get an agent. But this
Wow.
I can't control getting an agent, but I can control this.
So you're going for different roles now. You're with an agent. Does it feel any different being an actor now?
I thought everything would, I thought things would taste different. Everything would, I thought, I go on Actors Access and there are roles waiting for me. I could just take them. No, it's the same way, but it's been great because they really, I love the agency, Guild Talent. Gabrielle is the best, but they really get me. They know what roles I can play because I know what roles I can play. It's not their job to figure out what I can do. It's not your agent's job to figure out what roles are right for you. Because my best friend has got an agent, but he said, well, my agency doesn't know what to do with me. I said, well, what roles can you play? I don't know. It's not the agent's fucking job to figure out what you can do. It's your job to tell them, this is what I can see. And even on WeAudition, I've come across a lot of sides that I wouldn't have come across otherwise. I said, I would love to play this role. And in fact, I worked with somebody yesterday. He's working on a project in New Mexico. And so, this could be cool. So now I'm going to look into that and see if my agent can help me get seen for it.
It's so interesting what you say about always playing cops, because I'm the opposite. I always play criminals.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm going for procedural where I know the other person is a cop, I try and find you on WeAudition to read the cop line for me. So it works really well.
With Maurice, if ever I need one, I just go. I don't know. Maurice is my go-to cop.
Yeah. I've had people say, because I say that I'm New York trained, and because in the bio on your WeAudition bio is if you're a reader, if you speak a foreign language, put that in there. If you're from, because I saw one bio, she said, I'm an English lad with an English accent, and I thought that was funny. So now I know if I need an English actress for the scene, I can book her. But yeah, it's been, and I'll get a lot of people say, "Oh, you look like cop roles," and that's interesting. See, because that casting sees me as cops, and actors see me I'll go with that. I'm happy to play cops.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of the times people say, "Oh, I don't want to be typecast," but actually, I think it's not a bad thing to get typecast until you've got to the level where you can be a chameleon, right? But up until then, it's great. If people think of me for the same type of roles, I'm like, great, they understand what I can do,
right?
And the same with you. You're obviously going in for FBI so many times because you're right for that universe.
Yeah. It's a matter of time before they're starting up again, so it's a matter of time. But you know what I'm excited about? This is the year that I stop becoming a cater bartender and act full time and get paid for acting.
Amazing.
Good luck. Well done. Yeah. It will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I do recommend to any actor who wants to be a reader on WeAudition to be a reader, because it will. You don't have. Yeah. Again, you don't have to do anything. It'll make. Yeah, I've just been, and it really, because it's about, I started doing it during the height of the pandemic. And if I didn't, I was sitting at home, not doing anything, and I got to read with people, and I really got to connect. And it was, I spent, maybe, 15 minutes reading with somebody and then a half an hour talking, and it really about the business. And it just became, I was a lot less lonely, but it really helped me forge these connections and get to know people. And, but yeah, and it will make acting easier.
And the thing about what you said about being online with people and creating that friendship, it's a community business, right? It's teamwork. So we need to know other actors. We need to know the community, and that's what keeps us accountable. It keeps us inspired. And you recently came to one of our events in New York. Did you meet any nice other members there that you haven't met in person before?
Yeah, I did. But this was the weirdest thing, because there's a woman here that I work with, and I quite like her, and I read with her on WeAudition, and I said, I'm kind of a big deal on here. And we read. She says, "Oh my God!" She says, "You're really good," and it's thrilling because I'm maybe, but I said, "Hey, come to this event." She said, "Oh yeah, people are going to know who you are." I said, "Nobody's going to know who I am." I said, "It's not about me. It's about the film fest. It's about Darren and Richard and WeAudition." And I get there, and somebody says, "You're Pete Luna."
That's what I did. I saw the pictures and I said, "Oh my gosh, I should have gone. It was Pete."
I said, "How do you know who I was?" I said, "Well, Darren raves about you because he got the biggest role of his career from the read." I said, "No kidding. I had no idea." But then it was really cool because I recognize. Somebody said, "Oh, I recognize your profile photo," because when I'm home, I'm always online. And I got to meet some really cool people, and it was just it was a great, because I got to talk with fellow readers, and but it was really, I got to say, it was kind of cool being WeAudition famous.
Pete, you actually helped Richard book a very big role, didn't you?
Yeah, Gran Turismo, right?
Yeah, Gran Turismo. Yeah, I tell people about it all the time because it was late at night, or it was very special because the script, they didn't give me the whole script. They just gave me a tiny piece, and they said, "Right, do these 3 lines word for word, but also give me an improvised version of it." Never had that before. I don't think I've had it since.
Right.
But do you remember? And I said, "This is really weird." The director is Neil, massive, Blomkamp. Wow, it's I don't know what the movie is, but it's probably going to be Gran Turismo. It's going to be big. And then, because it wasn't called that, it was called something else. And the sides, I didn't know whether they were real or not. So we read it word for word, and it was like nothing. And so I said, let's just improvise. So we made up characters, and we just kept going. And Peter's brilliant at that. And he was shouting at me for something. You said, actually, you shouted at some rude stuff to a guy before he came on camera. And I think you were doing that to me. You were shouting stuff of get this or get that, the other.
Right.
And that comes across. And I really felt that moment.
Yeah.
And I think on camera, that's, I cut some of that out, obviously.
Right.
But that energy went into the tape. And
because that carries over. It's not like, if you yell action and then you drop in, you're done. You gotta be in before the director yells action. So that was it. Yeah, I was trying to throw you off.
And it was good. How long do you read with people normally? Because we do 15 minutes, half an hour. What's your normal?
Usually 15 minutes, but then more likely, sometimes the actor will extend. Well, most times the actor will extend another 15 minutes.
Most times.
But I'm going to recommend to any actors who want to record it and then watch it don't. Ask the reader what he thinks. You were not the best judge because I can see what you're doing. And if you fuck up a line, that's interesting. If we talk over each other, that's interesting. It can be really interesting for a scene, especially if it's an argument scene. We end up cutting each other off. Oh, we ended up fucking up, but that's a great fuck up because I mean, if it's perfect, whatever perfect is, there's nowhere to go. You know?
Right, and I think it all depends on what genre. Obviously, sitcom is a little different to drama, but I always find that in the dramatic scenes that I do, I actually like it when I know my lines nearly enough.
Right.
Because that searching for the word is what we do in normal life. We don't always know what we're going to say. So as long as I know my lines, I like to still be thinking about it a little bit in certain moments.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what it is? I'll encourage the actors that, well, don't perfection's impossible, and just make this a conversation. Obviously, you know what you're doing, but no, in real life, we don't say, you know what, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this word just like this. I'm going to say I love her. I'm going to say it just like this, and this is how she's going to react. That's not realistic. So that's my big advice to anybody. Be yourself as the character. Know the lines. If you don't know, if you fuck up a line, doesn't matter, because that's not. If you ask, why did you cast me? Because you were perfect.
And it's a second pair of eyes to see something that you're not seeing sometimes as well. Isn't it?
And the reader will always see it. If I don't see it, then it wasn't. Yeah. If you're not thinking it, I'm going to see it. If you're looking at a teleprompter, I'm likely going to see it. If you're using that and you're not putting any thought into this, you're thinking, I'll just use the teleprompter. And I did work with an actress who had on the teleprompter, it was word perfect, but then I said, but that's not. But there was nothing there other than she knew the lines and that was it. But I didn't. But that's you have to do the work. This teleprompter is not a substitute for doing the work.
So what's next for you, Pete? What are you working on? What do you want to work on, and what's next?
I got an availability check for a Netflix series, a limited series, to play a bartender. And I really
congratulations.
I got the availability check at the same time I got the audition, and it was one line in the audition. It was my first live audition. It was cool, but what's your availability from now until September? Well, I'm wide fucking open. Book me. Book me.
I had a June to November the other day. But,
oh my God.
Yeah. For one episode.
I had today, actually, April till November.
Yeah.
Like, hang on, we're past April already. So that's just a general, isn't it?
Yeah, but
I hope you were available last April, Richard. That'd be really...
Apparently I was. Yeah. Book me in.
It's for a time travel movie, right?
Perfect.
Yeah. But
yeah.
And but my advice to I'm looking forward to that would be great. I was doing that manifestation in my mind. I already had it. I met the actors and they were great. But I don't know, it'll happen or it won't, but I look forward to being on FBI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that happens for you. It looks like you're solidly planted in that universe in the casting director's mind. Yeah. So keep putting the work in. And I just want to say thank you from us at WeAudition for all the help you give other actors on the platform.
Yeah,
really
I love you guys.
Really appreciate it.
You've really changed. You changed my life in so many ways with this platform.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us on this.
Thanks.
And we look forward to seeing your beacon online and seeing you on the TV on FBI.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot.
I hope that happens soon. Thank you, Pete. Okay. Really lovely to have you on. Thank you.
If you'd like to join the WeAudition community, go to weaudition.com/show to get 25% off. Now, back to the show.
Welcome, guys. And we have Katrina Rumbal in the house today. How are you doing, Katrina?
Kia ora. Good, thank you. And yourself?
Good, thank you. Now, you've been a member of WeAudition for a while. You're one of our MVP members, and you've had a couple of, you said, mind-blowing stories that have happened on there. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I think I joined WeAudition in the beginning of 2020. So it's been 4 years consistently on now, and I absolutely love it. But what I think is so important is, especially like I now live in Australia, but previously I was in New Zealand, and that dream of being an actor and working on American shows sometimes feels, and British shows feel so far away. And what's interesting is because you're literally helping actors and they're booking these shows. I mean, I remember helping somebody for FBI International, and then I was watching FBI International and suddenly the scene was on that we had taped. And so I was like, oh, this is possible. This thing we think is so far away, people are actually booking and working and doing the thing. And one thing that has always stayed with me is I was helping an actor who was, the show she was just on had been cancelled, but she was number one on the call sheet, huge show, huge network. And I was helping her rehearse for another show. And during our session, she just went, oh, I don't think I'm going to ever work again. And was so deflated. And I was like, what? No, you've just been number one on a call sheet. What are you talking about? Like, you're a series reg, you're going to work again. And I just had no idea people at that level, you know, booking series reg, number ones on a call sheet, had the same insecurities that I did. You know, like, I haven't been a series regular yet. I'm worried that won't happen. I'm worried that I'll never work again. And so then to see people at that level, you know, have those insecurities were just like mind-blowing to me.
How was that experience that you had on WeAudition? How has it changed your mentality as an actor for your own work to help yourself succeed?
It's made me realize that those thoughts we have are not truth. They're not fact. It also feels like we're all in this together, and we keep acting like we're all individuals in this business. And I don't believe that. I think the whole competition thing, I think it's a thing to divide us. And so when I see people having those same feelings, it's like I want to support other actors and like lift us all up together. It's also made me realize that, you know, when I do an audition, that because I've seen these people book work, it's like, oh, I could book this. You know, it's not like this far out thing.
That's something actually I've realized as well. It's definitely attainable. We've got some meditations on the website as well. They've been on there for quite a long time. And one of those is it's not a competition. It's a really popular one. And actually taking that mentality from it being, you know, all about this one, got to get this job. Amanda, actually, in a previous episode of this podcast, the show, she said that, you know, a similar thing. It's you can see in the audition, you can see the desperation, she said. And I think, do you see that when you're reading with people? Do you see their energy?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting because you really see people come on and they'll be like, okay, yep, just got to put this down. And they might do 3 takes. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it happened the other night when I was reading for somebody for the rookie. Yeah, cool, got that, thank you. And you're like, oh, okay, great. But then somebody will like work it with you for an hour. And I'm like, you've got the take. Like, I would just leave it at there, you know. But I think also I like to say now, I want to book the room, not the job. So I just want to be like, hey, here's my offer. Like, take it or leave it. Like, what can I personally bring to the role? And that's why I really help. When you are a reader, though, like, you do need to be careful with who you're reading with and their vibe and sort of match what they need, because some people are like, I'm doing this, I've coached on this, I'm doing that. Some people want to work it a bit with you or will ask for any advice. And sometimes I'll be like, especially if I know the actor and I've helped them a few times, I'm like, you've taken all yourself out of it. So I don't see any of you in this character. I still need to see you in the character, because from my perception now, I believe that's what casting are doing. They're casting you in that role. And look, sometimes it's just not going to be us, but it might be like, what can you bring to that role? That makes sense.
Are you saying that quite often, actually, that a shorter read is better, and you see that, and then people, as the longer they go, they don't necessarily get better? Do you see some people get better over the course of a session, or is it usually that they just wear it out?
It really depends. I think if people have really, like, they've pre-done the work before they call you up on WeAudition, and you've done about 5 takes, I feel like a shift can sometimes happen between take 4 or 5, and it's like, oh yeah, you've got it. And then often I like to say to them, hey, I like to do a wild take, so now we just throw everything away, trust our instincts and do it, to get one sort of, we've got it in the can, now we're just going to play and have fun. And often I feel like actors from take 7 start getting diminishing returns. But the exception of that is I help people in Vancouver and LA that have got like, hey, I've got 4 auditions this weekend. I haven't really worked it. I need to work it on its feet. And I'm like, great, let's do it. So, we'll spend 45 minutes actually just like grasping the material, working it on its feet. And so you do need that time to then be able to get the result that you want and feel happy with.
And when you've worked as a casting director for commercials, right?
Yes, in New Zealand I have, yes.
And do you find that market very different from the theatrical and TV market? Tell us about the difference in auditions you see there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people find commercials a lot harder than film and TV because it is just improv and you're given a minimal amount of instructions. And I feel like actors need to trust themselves a bit more to tell the story.
Rishi was just showing off his commercial look.
That's what Darren did when he did Mustang. That was it, wasn't it? You just let the car go past.
I watched a car go past. Yeah, that's my
first
big
commercial.
I love it.
I put my arm around a girl.
Yeah.
And
I love
long
it.
time ago. That was it.
And
I did an
that
audition,
can be
did a
hard in an
callback.
audition.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My first commercial, I was actually pregnant not in real life, in the commercial, and I had this fake baby belly, and then my grandpa messaged me saying, "When's the baby due?" And I was like, I hadn't told him yet I was in the commercial, so I was like, no.
Amazing.
But what I think the difference between, also it's very interesting because New Zealand commercials are quite different to Australian commercials. It's a very different vibe. So I think commercials, and when I've helped actors in America, very different vibes. So I think that's
How
really...
so? Can you talk us through the differences?
Yeah, I think New Zealand, I think we're very good at commercials. Australia too, but I really like New Zealand commercials. I think we really tell a story. Like, I think we're really telling a story. I also think, going back to your question, Darren, of what is the difference between commercials and film and TV, is the person hiring you. So in commercials, it's the clients, right? It's the head of marketing of Colgate. It's not necessarily the director or producer. So little tidbits I like to do is wear the brand color. Like instantly you're going in, because when I'm on set, they're like, do we have enough yellow? Have we got enough yellow for one cover? Okay. So I remember I auditioned for a New Zealand Grab a Seat commercial. I wore the green t-shirt of Grab a Seat. I booked it. I got to wardrobe. They had the exact same t-shirt. And so I was just like, you guys, brand color. And also, people instantly want to be engaged with you at the start of a commercial. So I like to smile from the get-go. And when I was casting a commercial in New Zealand, I had the producer over me and I was showing him 2 tapes. And one guy just laughed at the start of his audition and the other guy didn't. And he went, oh, that guy's way better, the guy laughing. And I was like, wow. What? So I was like, okay, note to self. And it's helped my bookings go up. So
Well, the brand color thing is really interesting, actually, because even if it's not exactly what they want, like in your example, you were wearing the color, but let's say it's a scenario where that isn't necessary, or the color's like wild, for instance, and doesn't fit. It's still a subliminal thing that's going to make the person in the brand just feel more aligned with that actor, isn't it? It's a bit of like neuro-linguistic processing type thing.
Oh, totally. And so, And so when I help actors on WeAudition, I'll quickly, especially because it might be brands I don't know because it's in America or England, I'll quickly Google the brand for them and be like, do you actually have a red top? And they're like, oh, yeah, I do. I'm like, yeah, go put that on. That's the brand color. And often they will do it. So, which is good. And yeah, as you say, it's that subliminal messaging because you are going to the head of marketing.
That's great, because if you ever do a WeAudition commercial, we've got a bunch of colours for you to choose from.
Whatever you're wearing is fine.
Whatever.
Yeah, matching that background.
So you mentioned there, like working with people in England and in America as well, because you're sort of in a completely different time zone. When do you normally work with people? How does it work? Because actually we've got people online all the time. When do you normally work?
It just like lifts me up and makes me alive, So I'm normally on there about 9:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. And it's really interesting because you start learning what actors are on. Normally LA during the day. For some reason, people in New York are taping between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. their time. So
I bet I know why that is, because it's quiet.
Yeah, the noise.
Oh.
Yeah, because if you're in an apartment and everyone's air con's going on and people are walking up and down the stairs, that's probably why that is.
Yeah. So normally help those people in New York a bit later, and then it normally switches, and then people from Europe and the UK come on. It was easier, a better time zone when I was in New Zealand to see that crossover. A lot of the times now I think I miss people in England just because of the time zone, or unless they're up early taping during the morning. Yeah.
So you literally are on it for many hours of the day when you're not working on a set or working in casting, right? That's amazing. That's obviously how you've managed to get over 1,400 reviews on the platform. That's a massive number.
Thank you.
Do you
I'm
find
very
a lot of
proud
people?
of that.
You should be.
Absolutely. And that's
Thank
not
you.
reads, that's reviews. So, I mean, you must have done way, way more reads than
Yeah.
that. You should be proud.
It's funny because when we started this system, we were talking about how that kind of review system works. We remember thinking, no one's going to get 100 reviews.
I was like,
we
gold
were
star
putting
for
in
100.
these,
Yeah.
we're like
Oh, wow.
putting in these like levels, and we're like, but no one's ever going to reach 100. And suddenly, there's people with thousands. And if you've seen thousands of auditions, which you have,
Yeah.
is there one thing that sticks out to you for a good audition versus a not good audition? Is there one common trait?
You have to be prepared. And that's, look, I'm not a stickler for lines. I love mistakes in an audition. I think that sparks and comes alive. The audition comes alive. But I think you need to know the story you're telling, know the relationship with the characters. I have a personal world point of view and have broken down the script, have a moment before, have a moment after. And some people have just learnt their lines, and that's just not enough, you know? Yeah.
And you
I
see
think
that
would
through
be
the
big
screen.
thing. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, some people want to be I feel bad saying this, but some people want to be word perfect, but they haven't learnt it. So if you're not, I think you then need to accept where you're at in your process. So if you're not word perfect and you're not going to be, don't keep trying to be word perfect. Just like, now let's work on story.
Well, a lot of casting directors say they don't expect a finished product. They expect you to bring your work to the table. I think there's a few instances when being absolutely spot on the words for the audition is important. Certain writers,
Oh, absolutely.
You've got a lot of background in comedy, I know. And for instance, a sitcom, you need to hit the words and hit the beats and something like that. But there is a little bit more flexibility with an audition. I think, especially if you're bringing forward good acting and you are embodying the character. If you paraphrase a little bit in the audition, as long as you're getting your character across, that's not going to make or break your audition.
No, and I think that's a very valid point. It really does depend what you're auditioning for. If you are doing multicam, like it's written so specifically, you do need to hit it. But if it's sort of like a broad city, you can be a bit more free with it as well. And I think procedural dramas as well, you do need to be word perfect. But I wouldn't throw out an amazing audition because you said the main character's name wrong. This
is exactly where I find it changes, because sometimes you do the audition with a couple of wrong words or paraphrase, and then you do it again and it's not as good an audition, but you got the words right. I will always go back to the better audition and be like, and then the third time you try and get both those things right and it just doesn't,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And you go back to the first one again.
Yeah, 1,000%. So I think and I will say that to actors when I'm taping with them and it's going so well and they muck up a word and then they stop their take. And I'm like, no, don't stop the take. And they were like, oh no, really? I was like, yeah, it was really good. I was like, that's fine, we'll run it again. But I also recommend actors now to stop like cutting their takes, because if you get in that habit, when you go back in the room, you're going to stop. You're going to go, oh, sorry, can I just go from the top? No, just keep going. So I think it's really good to get your body through that, the motion of just like, oh, I flubbed up. And look, I did a casting director workshop. Yeah, and I did a casting director workshop and I forgot the line. And I went, and afterwards he went, oh, that moment was just so beautiful and so real. And you guys, all it was me was going, what's
Yeah.
the line? What's the line? Oh, this is the line. And it's like,
Because you do that in real life.
You do. You do.
We don't always know exactly what we're going to say.
And we don't speak perfectly all the time in real life. And we'll put gaps in strange places, I've noticed. Like I really watch people, people sort of talk now, and they'll put a gap in a weird place and then come back with this thought. And I'm like, oh, that was interesting. But and I think it's really interesting. I said this in my acting class. I like how you interpret a script and sort of your world point of view, right? Like I had my nieces in my car and this truck was like coming towards us. And I was so angry because I've like got my nieces, they're sort of young. And so I was like, oh, really? Really? That's what you're going to do? You're going to try and smash into me? Are you serious? Like, you're being such an asshole right now. And I thought, and I smiled, and my nieces cracked up laughing. And they were like, Auntie, you were smiling the whole way through that. Like, what? And they thought it was so funny. And then I thought, if that was in a script, you would just play that angry and shouting, right? But actually, who's with you? What is the scenario? Where are you? What time of day it is? And it was just a little moment of like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm like, what behavior do we do in real life, depending who we're around? And I think we need to take that into our scripts more.
Yeah, it makes it more authentic, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's like when you have a bad thing happen in your life, you're like, oh, that'll be really, really good. For like, when you're really sad, you're like, oh, this will be really good. Right, I've got to remember this. Got to remember this.
Absolutely.
It's difficult to be. So, do you think you've been on some primetime soap and serial dramas in
New Zealand?
In New Zealand, yes, it was in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Do you think you are better for being a reader, for having been a reader? Are you better at learning those lines quick and examining those scripts quick?
Oh, absolutely. And I think like when I help actors as well, especially if it's like procedural dramas, it's like, oh yeah, we've seen this scene 1,000 times, right? It's like, so we know the formula of this. But it also teaches you, I think I'm always easy to work with, happy to be here on set. Like I'm very prepared. And I think being a reader helps because you just like, you're reading so many scripts, so you're reading story. I think it makes you pick it up faster. You know what beats you need to hit. And being on set as well, those series regulars are like, they're working all the time. So you just want to be fully prepared because and because I think you've done soap as well, Richard, that you might get one take. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I got one take and I was like, oh, okay. And then, 2, 3 if you're lucky, but normally 2. So you have to be so prepared. And I also think because I've worked with a couple of series regulars on WeAudition as well, like they're working at such a high level that you just want to raise to that bar as well. So I think, and that's why when I was on set, this was my first guest on Shortland Street. And I just had such a moment of just so happy because it was like the last 12 years of every workshop, every class, every read on WeAudition just prepares you for that moment.
I really believe that working with working actors makes you a better actor. And that's what I always say to people with reading on WeAudition. It's not just for people that aren't out there in the world really acting. We have very qualified actors being readers because it's like being in class. You're literally reading with other professionals. Sometimes I think it's better than being in class because often when you're in class, you're with a teacher that once was an actor or a casting director.
Right.
And you're with other students that are probably the same level as yourself, if not worse. Often that's the case. Whereas if you're reading on WeAudition, you're reading with someone that's going on set tomorrow to do a series regular role.
Yeah.
And that script and that language as well is going to be up to date. I mean, the stuff that I'm doing when I'm doing my accent stuff, it's stuff that's being filmed now. It's not
absolutely
50 years old stuff or 20 years old stuff. And that colloquialism and everything will be right for the TV drama or the films that are being made next year. So it's going to be on point. There is a
difference, isn't there? There's trends and you can tell. There's kind of, it's very much a difference in the way people film. I think we've gotten over the years a lot more realistic with dramas.
Definitely.
Everything used to be very stilted and very scripted like a play, and now it's not. You have walk and talks and you have overlapping conversations. So I just think working on new material, and then the other benefit of working on current material is you know what's out there. So you're ready when you get the audition for that. you might have already
Absolutely.
read several episodes of that script.
Totally. And I feel very lucky because the class I'm in, I actually take a class via New York, and they're always doing up-to-date scripts as well. And, my classmates are booking like Chicago Med, FBI. So I'm like, oh, great, this is fantastic. But what's wonderful is I helped 2 people on WeAudition audition for a scene for Chicago Med. I loved it for procedural dramas. I'm obsessed. And what I also love about WeAudition is you're helping different actors audition for the same role. That actually happens more often than not. And it's so interesting because you start playing casting director, and it's really interesting because people bring such different things to the role that you're like, oh, I don't even know who I would cast. They're both fantastic. And so it's really interesting when that happens as well.
I've had that happen with me as well. I read with Stuart, and he, I've mentioned it, I think before, he read other roles in the same series, and I didn't have the whole script. So he told me, and we pieced it together, and we're like, oh, that's what he's talking about there because of a different reference he had in a different reading from a different actor. So that's really, really useful to be and seeing that. And you can sort of see it then from the Matrix point of view. You can see the script from all the different angles as a reader.
Like
That's
one of those
quite
crazy people in the show that's piecing the
All the bits together.
serial killer together. Yeah.
With
But
the
that's what I
wire
love as
wall.
well is like, you're right, Darren, you're literally reading things that are casting right now. It's happening in live time. And, I've had a series regular from Huge Hit Show been like, do you have any advice? Like, what do you think? And I'm like, what? What do you mean you're asking me? Like, you've just done 6 seasons of a show. But actors are so like respectful, and they're like, no, I want an outside point of view. Like, what do you think there? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I think in this moment you could do this, etc. I also think that's a valid thing to say is I have learned that it's actually best to be asked for your opinion rather than just like, oh, hey, I reckon here, and here, because some actors are like, no, I've done my coaching, I just want to put it on tape. But unless I specifically see something and they haven't asked me, I'll be like, excuse me, I just have like an idea. Do you want to hear it? Often they do, yes. But I think it's always best to ask for permission rather than just like inserting yourself as well.
That's a great tip actually, because as a reader, your job is to be a service to the other actor. And that actor, especially if they're in a rush, they might know something about the process that you don't know, that they haven't taken time to explain, but they've got some extra opinion about it. Or maybe they've just done the work in a certain way that is true to them and they want to keep it that way. But I actually find as well, maybe you've seen this, but the better actors, the more experienced actors are usually the ones that are more open to ideas. And that's why they're successful, because they're not rigid. They're used to being directed. They're used to having different opinions thrown at them.
You get a note, don't you, from a director, and you've got to take that on board. And
Exactly.
if you agree with it or not, you might have your go, and then you get a note from the director. Well, tough. You've got to do their version because it's a note from the director to fit the cohesive whole for the whole series or whatever. That's their job.
Yeah. But actually, in a good show that's got a good world, the showrunner probably knows the world, but each director's new. I find the directors are more collaborative. They will come at you and say, what do you think about your character doing this? And you can absolutely say, no, I don't see it that way. And in some of the shows I've done, I never really got this in England, but in America for sure, I do feel it's more collaborative. I get
They're longer series, aren't they, in America?
On a series or even on a film, I find, and it's a little bit more when you're a little further up the call sheet or you've got a very specific role, they do ask you how you want to play the character, how you think they fit into the world. And so in that way, I have felt more empowered to say, you know what, no, I don't think he would do that. Or like, I don't think he would wear that. I've, certainly been in many situations where costume has asked your opinion on what you think the character should wear, and I've changed. I've changed the zone of what they look like to a degree on that, because it is your character.
What you look good in as well.
for.
You what you feel right in and or whatever for the role as well, because you're living it. You will know what shoes you feel walk right for the character, and
and it's being right for the character. Yeah. Like the last time I noticed that with costume, I was doing a very kind of gritty piece, I was playing, as I usually do, a criminal, and I just looked at my shirt and I was like, this is too clean. This is too tidy for this guy. So I had them go and scruff it up and put some. I'm like, he just wouldn't wear this clean. You know, yeah. So I think it's useful, getting back to the point, to be receptive to ideas, and then you take the pieces of what you want and leave the rest. But be receptive.
Definitely. I also think that's a big thing as well, probably particularly for women, is makeup. In the makeup chair is actually asking for what looks good on you, like what looks right on you. I remember doing a commercial and just something didn't look right on my face, and they wanted a very natural look. And I was like, why am I just looking so? And then halfway through the day, I was like, I have no blush on me. I have no nothing here. And so I went up to the makeup lady and I was like, oh, could you please put some blush on or a bit of contouring? Because I looked quite flat face, you know? And so lucky we hadn't done all the outside shooting yet. But I also think, and look, that took me probably years to speak up on that. But I think it's advocating for yourself, and not such a vanity thing, but once again, you know what sort of looks good on you. This is commercial. So it's you know, you are part of that cog in that machine as well that can collaborate in that way.
It's interesting because full circle, we started this conversation talking about top actors having insecurities. But do you find that with experience comes more confidence, which allows you to do your job easier?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think there are moments, right? Sometimes I get I had an audition recently, 11 pages, and I was like, oh my, I've got 3 days to do this. And sometimes I know I can handle that, I know I'm a good actor, but sometimes I actually go look at a previous self-tape I've done to prove to myself, yeah, we can do this. Because my process in the beginning, and I drill a scene on WeAudition, I'll be ringing up people, and it's tedious and it's painful, that initial thing, and it doesn't sound good and it's not good. And I think because I told Pete, this is how I learn lines, is I call it learning to read, where you write the first letter of each word. And it's painful for me, it's painful for the reader. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this will get it in my head. And doing that work and then knowing I've done the work, I've booked before, I've done auditions before, that's where your confidence, I think, grows, is from doing the work. And I think it's all that moments, you know, when you do go a while with not booking and you're like, oh gosh, can I do this? Am I going to be able to do this? And then an audition comes through and you're like, yeah, great. Okay, I'm back. So I think it's moments of insecurity, but I think looking at past evidence actually helps your confidence as well.
Well, Katrina, the evidence shows that you're an MVP on WeAudition. 1,400 reviews. I'm so glad that you use it both as an actor and as a reader, because I think that really you're really giving to the community and you're being part of it. So we really appreciate you.
I also think I love being an actor on WeAudition as well, because it will hold you accountable. As I say, I will drill an audition, and sometimes it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, okay, time for bed. I'm like, no, I need to go over this scene. I don't want to sit there by myself doing it, but I'll jump on WeAudition and get somebody to read it with me, minimum for me 3 times. Normally that's just all I need. But that's what it's doing, right? It's holding yourself accountable. Now you've done extra work that you wouldn't have done as well.
Good time to do it as well. Before you go to sleep, you're probably going to dream about that or process that overnight. And then in the morning, you wouldn't do that if you were just reading it on your own. That interaction with that human being, you might let it sink in.
Definitely
Good
not.
tip. Great tip. Well, I want to reiterate what Darren said. Thank you for coming on, and thanks for being part of WeAudition. I think it's absolutely fantastic, the work that the MVPs do, and like yourself, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. This has been a blast. And thank you for creating WeAudition. My gosh, I can't believe there was a time where I just worked on auditions by myself.
That's the quote right there. I can't believe there's a time when I worked on auditions by myself. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you so much. Bye.
We're here with JD Hunt, actor in Britain. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, doing great. Thank you.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you've been a WeAudition member for quite some time now, and you're one of our coveted MVPs. Tell us about that.
I mean, it's quite awesome that it's been 5 years now, hasn't it, since we we ran into each other in Cannes at your party, and it's been awesome. It's such a wonderful community to be a part of. Like every time I come to the States or different places in the world, I meet up with new WeAudition friends, or I see you guys in some random country, and it's beautiful. I mean, I think that for me, when I was like, this is such a game changer, was when I was in Indonesia and I got a tape through, and I was like, okay, gonna jump on WeAudition because I have nobody else to read with. I actually tried to get my friend that I was with to help me, and he was probably the worst person that's ever read in for a self tape for me. And and then he was like, "Do you think I could be an actor at the end of it?" And I was like, "No, no, sir." Um, and then I was like, "I'm gonna WeAudition it." But just that's the beautiful thing, that you can be anywhere and just go on and find a reader, and they're pretty awesome humans, pretty awesome readers. Um, and that for me, I think is the best part. The community, the people.
That's great to hear. Tell me about what made him a bad reader.
Oh, I pray he sees this. But I did tell him at the time. He just didn't engage with what was going on. So he was quite monotone. I feel like I've come on this podcast now just to crap talk someone, but we're doing it, so let's strap in. He was very monotone. He didn't engage with the scene, and there were also certain moments that what you find when you hop on to WeAudition or start reading with anyone is that eventually you guys fall into a rhythm, and you just kind of a good reader just knows how to help the person they're reading for and sit under what they're doing, and just like time things in a certain way, even if like someone comes in with a line early or somebody, and there was just none of that. It was just all very like, where are you going?
So you
What
read
do
with
you
other
want to
people as
do?
well on WeAudition, don't you?
I do. Yeah.
You're a reader and you hire people. How do you get on when you're reading?
I love reading for people because I think that I try and empathize as much as possible and be like, okay, what do I need when I need a reader? I just need someone that picks it up quickly, that like asks me the right questions, and takes a note. So that's kind of what I try and do. I treat it as like, okay, this is as important to me as it is to you, but I'm going to give you everything you need. So even if you say to me, okay, like I mean, I've had some Americans where they're like, can you pronounce that word like like this, or you get some people that you read for, and they want you to do it exactly how they've rehearsed it or imagined it, and it's like, if that's what you want, that's what I'm going to give you. And yeah, it just for me becomes a really beautiful collaboration where at the end of it you're like, oh, I'm proud of this too, even though it wasn't actually my tape. But
Do you think you read with the same people as well? Do you think you read with the same people? Because you've made friends with this, haven't you?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I have a lot of people that come back and book me or email me and say, okay, when can you be on WeAudition at this time? And also meet a lot of like new people, or you'll meet someone once and then you may see them again six months later, which is super lovely. And I was messaging you guys when somebody who like is quite notable sort of just Googled, I need a reader for an audition, and ended up coming across WeAudition, and then thought we were all AIs, and then like clicked on me and booked me and was like, oh my God, you're a real person in real time. Like, and it was just the funniest thing because we ended up on for like 2 hours because we were just chatting after like they'd done the tapes. And she was like, this is so cool. Like, I never knew you could do this. I just Googled, I need a reader, because her husband wasn't available. And there we were. So,
and let's talk about, without saying who it is, let's just talk about why her husband wasn't available, because he was on the Oscar campaign trail.
He was on the Oscar campaign
as a best
trail.
supporting actor that week.
Yes, he was.
And so an A-lister's wife still needed a reader on WeAudition. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
and got you.
Yeah, and then he called and like said thank you for helping her, and I was just like, this is like the most bizarre, surreal experience. Like, just to be like, thank you for helping my wife, and I was like, well, I mean, why wouldn't I? This is awesome. Like, and also this is double awesome because I know who you are, and I'm a big fan, and you're amazing, and like your wife's amazing, and this is Shout out to them.
It's so interesting because during that week, I was doing a panel at CAA, and an agent from CAA was really fascinated with WeAudition, but said, you know, our clients aren't really at the level that they'd use this. And I said, don't be so sure.
Right.
Your
Right.
clients still need to learn their lines. They still need to do their work. How do you think they do it?
Right. And that's the thing. I think that like people forget as well that, you know, for me, sometimes I'll get a script through and I'll be like, let me just hop on WeAudition and just read this through with another human and see how this feels and you know what the nuances are, because you also find, and I don't know if this is just a me thing, but I think it is an everybody thing from being a reader so much, that sometimes if you get to doing it with another human for the first time when you tape it, you pick up so much nuance that in your head you perhaps didn't see coming or didn't think of, or you know, just didn't consider. And then suddenly you're like, oh, okay, this scene is completely different to, you know, how I rehearsed it, how I thought it was in my head. And again, it's magic that you can just, like, wherever you are, whenever you are, just hop online and find someone to run scenes, run ideas, run lines, you know, as well as taping it and getting it in.
That's so right, because in the olden days, you'd run a scene in the theatre for weeks and then you'd rehearse it round and round and round. But sometimes nowadays, when we're filming TV shows, the first time you say that out loud, that first time you read it with a human, might be on camera. Because,
Right.
you know, if you're doing a big show or whatever and you haven't ever read that through, but you've learnt your lines, you know, in your head, or you've never read it with another person, it could be, especially if you're a guest star and the camera comes on around on you first, you could be doing that for the first time. And we don't rehearse. And I've seen it. The rehearsals are pretty much non-existent now. You're pretty much shooting when you're on set, and you expected a good level to be performance ready when you open your mouth first time. There's no, you don't, you never have a few takes to warm up, do you, Darren? Never. I've never heard that.
I mean,
You know,
especially not if you're coming on set as, say, a co-star or a guest
No.
star, especially not. You've got to go, you know, you've just got to be ready and do your work. And often, I've said this before, if you're coming in at anything less than a series regular, your take will probably be first, because they want to give the leading actor, who you're opposite, enough time to feel into the flow of the scene. And they're going to shoot you first so that that person gets the better take, if that's
Absolutely. And we've seen people run their lines in the morning. And one of the benefits, actually, of having the different time zones and people on 24/7, I'm going to shout out a little bit to all the people around the world. We've got people in Australia, people in New York, people in England and Europe, and then people over in California as well. And it means that if people are in California are waking up at 5 a.m., they can run through their lines before they go on set with someone in Europe. And
Right.
we know, we see it. We see the numbers of when people wake up. We see what people do. We don't watch auditions. We can't do that. But the numbers show that people are running their lines in California before they go on set. That's awesome. Have you ever had any of that, JD? Have you had people recording real shows?
Hotels, trailers, like the amount of people that will call through and be like, look, I've got like 5 minutes, like, let's just run through this, or, you know, whatever it is. And that's, again, super cool that you can
That's
just
amazing.
be, now that there's an app as well, you know, you can literally just pick up your phone, hop on the app and just do it from wherever. But, you know, even back in the day, it was people with their laptops in hotel rooms or trailers, like, I'll be back in like 3 hours when we've wrapped, or whatever it is.
JD, so as an actor yourself, does reading with other people that are doing jobs versus, say, something like class, does that help you as an actor? Do you feel like you've elevated yourself?
I would say so, because you learn so much from like seeing other people. And also, I think something that, I don't know, maybe people might take for granted is that if you're on WeAudition, you know, like for a lot of the time of the week, you're working on text and new things like every day sometimes, you know, like sometimes like multiple times a day, you know, you're picking up different energies, you're seeing how different people interpret and pick up things and take notes. And those things are invaluable as an actor, because, you know, everybody will say it on every platform and podcast and social media platform, but like, you know, acting is like anything. You have to stay in the gym, you have to keep working and keep like learning. It's not something that you just get to a point and you're like, oh, I'm done now, cool, I'll just, you know, go to Hollywood. Like, you have to keep like training, and it's such a great way to, you know, work on your sight reading, work on like how you find your way into, you know, a circumstance that you've literally like opened up a script and you're like, okay, cool, we're mother and son and I'm a drug addict, you know, or whatever it is. I mean, that was the example that popped into my head, but you know, whatever it is, it just
usually the roles I get, JD, so I feel you.
Do you know what? That's what it was. I was looking at your face and I was remembering.
Rude. It's what.
Harsh but fair and very on point.
Everybody's got their own niche, you know.
So tell us about, have you ever had an audition that's changed your life?
I mean, at different points, yeah. Like, you know, it's sort of been a slow life changing, and you know, they keep getting bigger and bigger, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, we're here now. So quite a few, yeah, quite a few.
Tell us about something that you've had a moment where you thought things are going to be different after this.
Oh, so I mean, I had probably the biggest one of my career a couple of years ago, and I jumped on WeAudition with Kim Nelson, who I met on WeAudition. She's based in Canada. She's an amazing human, and I was like, okay, so like, let's just take a moment to like talk through what's happening right now. And I uploaded the script, and she was like, wait, is this from? And I was like, yes, it is. And it was basically like a film that an Oscar winner like produced and was starring in. And came out a few years ago, and I love this actor, so I was like, I have to work with this actor, and she's still on my bucket list. Viola Davis, you know, big up yourself. I was like, I can say that because it's my life, and it happens.
We've heard of her.
Yeah,
we've heard.
You know,
of her.
she's going to be huge in a few years. But yeah, so I auditioned for a Viola Davis film. So that happened. And I was just like, so I'm auditioning for this film. Viola Davis is producing it. She's starring in it. Like, and we both just took that moment to be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then we just got into it. And it was such an intense process. Like, I learned how to like kind of do my lines in Portuguese like a little bit, which is not something that I have on my CV or I do. And you know, we went through the processes, and it was kind of like, you know, weirdly, like every time I came back to Kim, I was like, okay, so this is happening now, so this is happening now, and it just felt like we were kind of in it together. And I was like, oh my God, if I book this, like I'm going to work with Viola Davis. Like I was like, wherever this film goes, I'm going to work with Viola Davis. This is amazing. So that's the one that pops into my mind straight away. And you know, it's also on my call to the university.
So you had several auditions for that?
I did, but I didn't book it. But you know, it was beautiful.
So you mentioned languages there as well. I've read with someone on WeAudition to do a French piece that was in English, being filmed out English and in French, and my French, certainly reading it, is not that great. I'm just gonna get by. But have you had that where you've used WeAudition to, you said Portuguese?
Yeah.
How's that?
Well, I mean, some of the lines were like, you know, because with that particular one, they came through and it just said in Portuguese, and then it had the lines, and I was like, great. So, and there aren't, as far as I know, a lot of Portuguese readers on WeAudition, but I was like, I can do this bit. I can find the Portuguese. And then, you know, like me and Kim were just in this sort of vibe of like booking each other to work on tapes, and like, you know.
So JD, if there's one thing, if there's a piece of advice or a tip that you could give yourself for when you were earlier in your career, what would it be?
Oh, that's such a good question. There's so many tips, but I think like just to believe in yourself more, I think, and to really go for it. Yeah, so believe in yourself more, go for it, and just like, don't be afraid. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, that is my Back to the Future time capsule to myself.
And you mentioned one of my favorite movies there. That's amazing. Well, it's been so great to have you on. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being an awesome member of the community.
And we really appreciate everything you've been on the last 5 years. It's really great to see you reach MVP and rereading with some fantastic people, and we get great reviews. We really appreciate everyone, but particularly our MVPs and yourself. Thanks for being on.
And I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for like, you know, having me on, and like even in this new venture of podcasting, here I am. Like, I love it. So here's to the next 5 years.
Thanks for listening to the WeAudition Show. Your hosts were Darren Darnborough and me, Richard Cambridge, from WeAudition, the leading professional actors community where you can connect, learn, elevate your career, and always get a self-tape reader on demand.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're a WeAudition member, or even if you're not, we would love it if you could please subscribe to this podcast, as it really helps us. And if you have friends who might get value from this episode, please share the link with them. You can find us at weaudition.com or for your iPhone or iPad by searching WeAudition on the App Store. See you next time.